She slapped me in a fit of rage. I called off the wedding, and now she's desperate for a second chance. Planning a wedding is supposed to be one of the happiest times in your life. At least that's what everyone says. For me, though, it felt like walking a tightrope. My fiancé, Lauren, had always been passionate and opinionated, which I admired. But as the wedding day approached, her fiery personality took on a darker edge. In the beginning, I told myself it was just stress. The wedding was big, elaborate, and far more intricate than I had imagined. Lauren was juggling so many things at once, finding the perfect venue, coordinating with vendors, balancing our budget, all while maintaining her demanding job. She threw herself into every detail with laser focus, and I wanted to be supportive. But as time passed, the cracks began to show. Small disagreements over trivial things, like which flowers to choose or the color of napkins, would blow up into heated arguments. Lauren would snap at me for not being involved enough or for disagreeing with her vision. I'd try to explain my perspective, but she wouldn't hear it. Every conversation felt like a landmine waiting to explode. One night, after a particularly long day at work, we sat down to finalize the guest list. I hoped it would be a quick task. Instead, it became the tipping point. Lauren was scrolling through her phone, muttering to herself about who we still needed to invite. I glanced at the list and realized we were already over capacity. The venue had a hard limit of 160 guests, and we were at 150. "Okay," I said, trying to sound optimistic. "We're close. We just need to trim a few names to make room for your cousins." She looked up, her brow furrowing. "Actually, I need to add someone else." My heart sank. "Lauren, we're already over budget." "Jake?" she interrupted. "I'm adding Jake." I blinked. Jake was a coworker of hers, someone I'd met once at an office party. He seemed nice enough, but we weren't exactly friends. "Jake? I thought we were prioritizing family and close friends." She set her phone down with a sigh, already defensive. "He's been such a good friend to me. It would be rude not to invite him." "We're already cutting people we know better," I pointed out gently. "Do we really need to invite him?" Her face hardened. "Why are you always so difficult about this?" "I'm not trying to be," I replied, keeping my tone even. "I just think we should focus on family. We've already had to make tough cuts." "This isn't just about you," she snapped, her voice rising. "Jake is important to me. Why can't you understand that?" Her reaction caught me off guard. "I'm not saying he isn't important to you, Lauren. I'm saying we need to think practically." "Stop!" she said, standing up abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor, the sharp sound punctuating her frustration. Her voice grew louder as she launched into a tirade, accusing me of being unsupportive, selfish, and unwilling to compromise. I tried to respond, to diffuse the situation, but the words barely left my mouth when it happened. Her hand flew across my face, the slap reverberating through the room like a gunshot. For a moment, everything froze. My cheek stung, but it wasn't the physical pain that got to me. It was the shock, the disbelief, the sheer audacity of it. I stared at her, stunned, waiting for her to say something, to apologize, to acknowledge what she had just done. Instead, she doubled down. "This is your fault," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and regret. "You push me to this point. You make everything so difficult." My mind raced. This wasn't just a fight over a wedding guest. It wasn't even about Jake anymore. This was something deeper, something I couldn't ignore. I saw a glimpse of the future, a future where every disagreement escalated like this, where anger turned into violence, where apologies were replaced with blame. "I can't do this," I said finally, my voice steady but heavy with the weight of my decision. Her eyes widened, the panic setting in. "What do you mean?" I'm calling off the wedding," I said, each word landing like a brick. Her jaw dropped. "You're overreacting. It was one slap, and you know I didn't mean it." "It's not just the slap, Lauren," I said, standing up. "It's everything. The fighting, the anger, the way we can't seem to talk without tearing each other apart. If this is what planning a wedding looks like, what's marriage going to be like?" Her expression softened for a moment, her eyes glistening with tears. "Don't do this," she whispered. "We've been through so much together. You can't throw it all away over one mistake." "It's not one mistake," I said, grabbing my keys. "It's a pattern, and I can't ignore it anymore." I walked out the door, leaving her standing there in stunned silence. That night, I checked into a small motel on the edge of town. The room was dim and sterile, but it gave me the space I needed to think. I sat on the edge of the bed, replaying the argument in my head over and over. Was I overreacting? Should I have stayed to talk things through? Or was the slap a line that couldn't be uncrossed? The next morning, my phone buzzed with messages from Lauren. "I'm sorry. Please come home." I didn't mean it. I was just stressed. "We can work this out. Please don't throw everything away." Each message tugged at my heart, but I couldn't shake the knot in my stomach. This wasn't just about her hitting me. It was about trust, respect, and the kind of relationship I wanted for the rest of my life. Over the next few days, I talked to a few close friends about what had happened. Reactions were mixed. Some said it was just wedding stress and that I should give her another chance. Others said the slap was a red flag that couldn't be ignored. "Marriage is supposed to be a partnership," my best friend Matt said during one of our conversations. "If she can't respect you now, what's going to change after you're married?" His words stuck with me. By the end of the week, I had made my decision. When Lauren called me again, her voice trembling as she begged me to come home, I felt a pang of guilt but stayed firm. "I need time," I said. "I'm not saying it's over, but I can't move forward with the wedding right now." Her silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold. "If you walk away now, don't expect me to wait for you." And with that, she hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. Maybe this was the end. Maybe it was for the best. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Friends and family flooded me with messages, some offering support and others urging me to reconsider. Lauren called and texted constantly, swinging between apologies and anger. "I didn't mean it, okay?" one message read. "I was stressed and you weren't listening to me." But that wasn't the point. Her inability to control her anger, even in such a high-stakes moment, made me question what life with her would look like. Was this the kind of relationship I wanted to commit to forever? A week later, Lauren showed up at my apartment unannounced. Her face was tear-streaked, and she clutched a small box in her hands. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know what came over me. I've been under so much pressure and I took it out on you. Please don't throw everything away over one mistake." I let her inside and we sat down to talk. She explained how overwhelmed she'd felt with the wedding planning, her demanding job, and the pressure to make everything perfect. I listened, but I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in my gut. "Lauren," I said after a long pause, "I understand that you're under a lot of stress. But what happens the next time we disagree? What happens when life gets hard and we're not planning a wedding but dealing with real problems? I need to know that I can trust you, not just to love me but to handle conflict without resorting to anger." She looked down, silent. "I'm not saying I don't care about you," I continued, "but this isn't just about the slap. It's about what it represents." Lauren begged me to reconsider, promising that it would never happen again. She even suggested couples therapy, saying she'd do whatever it took to make things right. But as much as I wanted to believe her, I couldn't ignore the fear that this was a sign of deeper issues. Calling off the wedding wasn't just about protecting myself. It was about recognizing that love alone isn't enough to sustain a relationship. In the end, I stood by my decision. Breaking off the engagement was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it felt like the right choice. Months later, I heard through mutual friends that Lauren had started therapy and was working on her anger issues. I genuinely hope she finds peace and happiness, but I know I made the right decision for myself. Sometimes love means letting go and learning when to walk away. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more watching videos.